This documentary discusses a natural disaster involving mass casualties. On the night of August 21, 1986, a lake in Cameroon killed more people in minutes than most natural disasters kill in hours. The villagers of Nyos went asleep under a quiet sky. By dawn, entire families lay dead in their beds, their animals collapsed in the fields, and not a single structure was damaged. What invisible force can erase life without leaving a trace? Lake Nyos sits in the volcanic crater of the Oku Massif in northwestern Cameroon, a remote region where farming communities have lived for generations. On that August night, the lake released a massive cloud of carbon dioxide that rolled down the valleys like an invisible river, suffocating everything in its path. This is not ancient history. Lake Nyos still holds deadly gas today, and two other African lakes share the same terrifying geology. Understanding what happened here could prevent future tragedies and reveals how even peaceful landscapes can hide catastrophic dangers. Timeline of key events. Lake Nyos formed inside an extinct volcanic crater roughly 400 years ago. The crater floor sits about 200 meters deep, and beneath it, volcanic activity continues to seep carbon dioxide into the water. For centuries, this CO2 accumulated in the lake's lower layers, trapped by pressure and cold temperatures, invisible and odorless. On August 21, 1986, around 9:30 p.m. local time, something triggered a massive release. Survivors in nearby areas reported hearing a rumbling sound, followed by a strange mist rising from the lake's source. Journal of Volcanology and Geothermal Research, 1987. The carbon dioxide, heavier than air, flowed downhill through three valleys at speeds estimated between 20 to 50 kilometers per hour. The gas cloud traveled up to 25 kilometers from the lake. In the village of Nyos, closest to the crater, nearly everyone died. In lower Nyos, Cam and Subum, the death toll climbed as the gas swept through. By morning, 1,746 people were dead, along with approximately 3,500 livestock source. United States Geological Survey report, 1987. Most victims showed no external injuries. They simply stopped breathing. Lower third, August 22, 1986, first rescue teams arrive. The first outsiders to reach the area were missionaries and aid workers. They found an eerie silence. Bodies lay in homes on paths exactly where people had collapsed. Vegetation was flattened along the gas path, but buildings stood intact. One survivor, a man named Joseph Nkwane, later described waking to the smell of rotten eggs and gunpowder, then losing consciousness. Source: BBC Interview Archive, 1986. Evidence and verification. The initial response was confusion. Early theories ranged from chemical warfare to terrorism to divine punishment. Document. Cameroonian government preliminary reports, August 1986. International scientific teams arrived within days to investigate what had actually occurred. Question: how do you prove an invisible killer? Researchers from the United States Geological Survey, French volcanologists, and Japanese scientists collected water samples from Lake Nyos. The tests confirmed extraordinarily high levels of dissolved carbon dioxide in the deep water, far beyond normal saturation source. Science Journal, March 1987. Chemical analysis ruled out toxic gases like hydrogen sulfide or volcanic fumes. Survivors consistently reported similar symptoms: sudden unconsciousness, confusion upon waking, burns on the skin from the acidic gas mixture. Source: Medical Journal documentation, Cameroon Ministry of Health, 1987. The pattern of deaths followed the topography precisely. Gas flowed downhill, sparing higher elevations. This matched the behavior of dense carbon dioxide. Physical evidence at the lake itself told the story. The water level had dropped by about 1 meter overnight. Document. French Geological Survey measurements, August 1986. The shoreline showed a distinctive water stain line. Vegetation near the lake was scorched and flattened in the direction away from the crater, consistent with a powerful gaseous eruption. Conflicting views and gaps. The scientific consensus identified a limnic eruption, a rare event where dissolved gas suddenly escapes from deep water. However, debate continues about what triggered the release on that specific night. Some researchers point to a possible landslide into the lake, while others suggest a small volcanic tremor or even heavy rainfall destabilizing the water layer's source. Nature Journal Review Article, 1988. INFOCARD. Confirmed, CO2 eruption versus unconfirmed, exact trigger mechanism. A smaller, similar event had occurred 2 years earlier at Lake Nyos, 95 kilometers south of Nyos, killing 37 people. Source: Cameroon government records, 1984. That earlier disaster received little international attention, and the connection between the two lakes was not understood until after Nyos. Some local officials have questioned whether better monitoring could have predicted the Nyos event, though scientists note that no warning system existed for this type of disaster at the time. Questions remain about how quickly the gas erupted. Some models suggest the release happened over several hours, while others indicate it may have been nearly instantaneous. Document. Competing studies in volcanology journals, 1980, 71990. This distinction matters for understanding future risks at similar lakes. Human impact. The villages affected by the gas were farming communities where families had lived for generations. Many victims were children and elderly people who had no chance to escape. In some homes, entire families died together. Survivors faced not only grief, but also the practical devastation of losing their livestock, which represented their wealth and food security. Joseph Inquain, one of the survivors, lost 6 family members that night. He described returning to consciousness hours later, finding silence where children had played. Another survivor spoke of walking through her village at dawn and finding no one responded to her calls. The psychological trauma extended across the region, as people feared the lake could release gas again at any moment. The Cameroonian government evacuated survivors to temporary camps, but many people were reluctant to leave their ancestral lands. Communities were displaced, and the social fabric of the region was fundamentally altered. International aid helped rebuild villages on higher ground, away from the valleys where gas could flow. Why it matters. A limnic eruption is like shaking a bottle of soda and then opening it. In Lake Nyos, carbon dioxide from volcanic activity below slowly dissolved into the deep water over decades, held in solution by pressure and cold. When something disturbed that equilibrium, the gas came out of solution all at once, like bubbles rushing from an opened bottle, except this bottle held millions of cubic meters of gas. Sidebar: Limnic eruption equals lake overturn releasing dissolved gas. Only 3 lakes in the world are known to have the specific conditions for this disaster: deep water, volcanic CO2 input, and stable layers that prevent mixing. Lake Nyos and Lake Nyos in Cameroon are 2. Lake Kivu, on the border of Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo, is the 3rd and by far the largest, with 2 million people living on its shore. Source: United Nations Environmental Assessment, 2002. This matters because Lake Nyos is still dangerous. After 1986, scientists installed degassing pipes that bring deep water to the surface, allowing CO2 to escape slowly and safely. Document. International Degassing Project Reports, 2001 present. These pipes function like pressure relief valves on a massive scale. Without them, gas continues to accumulate, and another eruption remains possible. The Lake Nyos disaster changed how we think about volcanic hazards. Volcanoes don't only threaten through lava and ash. Even extinct or dormant systems can kill through invisible mechanisms that operate over centuries. This knowledge now informs monitoring efforts at volcanic lakes worldwide. Mini recap. We know that Lake Nyos released a massive cloud of carbon dioxide on August 21, 1986, killing 1,746 people in minutes. We know the gas came from volcanic sources deep below the lake. What we still debate is exactly what triggered the release that night and whether it could have been predicted with the knowledge available at the time. The question now is whether we've done enough to prevent it from happening again. What's next? Scenario 1. Degassing continues successfully, confidence high. The current system of pipes at Lake Nyos has reduced CO2 levels significantly since 2001 source, USGS monitoring data, 2023. If maintained and expanded, these systems can keep the lake safe indefinitely. However, this requires ongoing international funding and technical support. Scenario 2. Natural dam failure confidence, low to medium. Lake Nyos is contained by a natural volcanic dam that shows signs of erosion document, Engineering Surveys, 2015. If this dam fails, it could release the lake water suddenly, potentially triggering another gas eruption or catastrophic flooding downstream. Reinforcement work has been proposed but not fully funded. Scenario 3. Similar disaster at Lake Kivu, confidence low. Lake Kivu holds far more dissolved gas than Nyos ever did, including methane alongside CO2 source. Nature Geoscience Study, 2018. While a limnic eruption there is considered unlikely in the near term, the consequences would affect millions. Energy companies now extract methane from Kivu for power generation, which may actually reduce the gas buildup. Lake Nyos taught us that danger doesn't always announce itself with earthquakes or eruptions. Sometimes it accumulates silently, in the deep water of a peaceful crater lake, waiting for the wrong moment. The victims of that August night deserve to be remembered not as statistics, but as people whose tragedy pushed science to understand a threat that had been invisible. If you found this story compelling, watch our next documentary, The Town That Disappeared Overnight: What Really Happened at Pompeii. It explores another community caught by a volcanic disaster and what the evidence reveals centuries later. Source notes and disclaimer. This script draws on peer-reviewed scientific journals including Science, Nature, and the Journal of Volcanology and Geothermal Research, USGS reports from 1986-2023, BBC archival interviews, and Cameroonian government documentation. Some details about survivor experiences come from secondary sources and should be understood as reported accounts. The scientific understanding of limnic eruptions continues to evolve. For updates on Lake Nyos monitoring, consult the United States Geological Survey Volcano Hazards Program. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon for more amazing videos.